Good Friday afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of FUD Yourself. JD and here, and Ceara. What's up?
Hi. We have your favorite topic today.
My favorite topic. I love saying FU to people, specifically the SEC.
So you love saying FU to Gary. That's like your Jim Jam.
That is my Friday ritual. But today it looks like we got lots of reasons.
That's true. It's not just arbitrary FUs today. They're backed FUs.
Yeah. And then we've got, it looks like we've got actually some good news at the end. Or is that just carryover?
I don't think it's good news.
Well, we'll see. All right. Well, yeah. So we're
literally going to talk about the SEC. We're going to talk only about the SEC only. We're talking about their custody rule. We're talking about the wild amount of money that they have pulled through 2023. We were talking about how many fines they've handed out. We're talking about the ETFs. We're going to even talk about Ripple a little bit towards the end and why that just won't end.
Hey, I'm going to go with a very strong bet that we're not going to make it through all those, but we can sure try. So I guess in an effort to do that, let's freaking go. Oh, wait. Live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. All major venues. Like, share, subscribe. Help us get the word out. Please bookmark us on Twitter. And a shout out to our merch sponsor today, friends at Tashi. White hoodie. It's Friday. I'm kind of like an angel, so it represents my personality.
White hoodie Friday? Is that a thing?
Yeah,
we were sure. On Friday, you were white?
It just symbolizes how pure and innocent I generally am.
Yeah, that's usually how I think about you.
Yeah. I mean, that's how most people should. And if not, they need to be slapped into line. Anyways, all right, let's freaking go.
Okay, JD, tell me what a registered investment advisor does.
Yeah, well, it's just a licensing structure in the United States. There's similar licensing structures in most places, but you have to have a certain standard. You have to write an exam or a couple of exams, and you have to have a standard of base knowledge. It's kind of like a measuring stick of do you know at least the basic stuff to be able to tell people about investments and whether they're good or bad or so on and so forth. It's highly regulated. There's a whole bunch of restrictions on outside business activities. If you're a registered investment advisor, there's a whole bunch of restrictions on what you can say and where and how you can say it. There's continued education. There's audits, follow-ups, professional standards. I mean, registered investment advisors, generally speaking, that the compliance and regulation around that is fairly well established. Mm-hmm. They kind of looped. We're talking about the.
So we're going to talk about how registered investment advisors are apparently not enough anymore, and the SEC wants the RIAs to also have to then use some type of regulated digital assets.
Yeah. So there are a few RIAs already that participate in the space. A notable one is Michael Arrington, and Arrington Capital is also an RIA. And so they have, which I've learned over the last couple of years, more restrictions than most other VCs in terms of just what they can say and certain things that they can advise on and how they, record keeping and document management and call notes, all of these things which we think should be standard. Like if you have clients and you're advising them to do things, you should have records of what you've told them and why and so on and so forth. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't do that.
Okay.
So it's we'll have to see. I mean, they kind of threw this in with the custody rule changes, which is interesting because this isn't necessarily custody.
I find it interesting because the concept is like we've been trusting these RIAs for so long, and now we're saying, hey, RIAs might actually not know enough about digital assets and crypto and stable coins and so on and so forth. So they should probably also register with some other type of custodian. So I wasn't able to find like very good examples of who those custodians might be, which I think I like the concept in theory, but it's also just adding more people to manage your finances, right? Which is kind of the opposite of what we're looking for in crypto. So I think that's interesting. But there's another component here that your digital asset custody solution provider can be bankruptcy remote. And that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah. Again, this is kind of an interesting one because I think the article is slightly conflating custody and advisory,
I agree.
Which actually isn't the case. They just happened to put this into the custody rule. Suggestions in February or March of 23 or whenever the hell that was. It's not necessarily that it's a custody rule because it is. So your custodian may have to have some sort of digital asset custody certificate or training or something. What gets me with this one, and this is why I think this is just another kind of piece of regulatory capture here, is there's new financial products all the time introduced to the securities markets. And we don't say, well, anybody that touches them needs a completely separate license. We say, nah, just kidding. We're going to mandate that inside of continued education for all of these advisors for the next year. So at the end of this year, everybody's going to have taken X number of hours of training. And you build it into the new exams for that same license. Like this to me just seems like another department with another set of bureaucrats.
Exactly. I don't need more red tape, right?
Exactly.
The whole point of DeFi was that we could kind of get rid of this whole concept in and of itself. And now we're coming back to an even deeper mismanagement of our personal funds.
Yeah. I mean, custody in theory, if your activities are entirely on chain, you shouldn't actually need custody because you're not actually custodying anything ever. And so there's still some speculation about how that's actually going to be addressed in the end. So I wouldn't stress too hard about this as of today. I mean, the RIA.
I'm gonna log off this call and pull my hair out specifically about this.
Yeah, well, I have none left to pull out, so I might do the same, but too late. Yeah, I don't know. Like becoming an RIA is not like rocket science, and I actually don't mind it. I do think that there probably should be some sort of mandatory education or training. I mean, granted, I'm going to use Canada as an example because I spent a lot of time in TradFi in Canada, but yeah, I mean, you could get your licensing exams done over the course of like 10 days that's study and exam. Like it's not hard. Most people, like a lot of people do it over a weekend.
Yeah.
Like the bar is pretty low still. And now I haven't done RIA in the US yet. So I can't speak specifically to that, but it's very similar in Canada. And so, I mean, if we can't implicate a minimum standard of education, 10, 20 hours, something.
I feel like that would be a positive thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting a driver's license. You know, you get a driver's license. It's not really that hard, but anybody behind a car, the steering wheel of a car, probably should understand at least what the signs mean and speed limits are and
the basics.
That kind of crap. Yeah, it's kind of the same idea with this. So I don't mind this as a general rule. I just think A, they're conflating a bunch of things. And B, I think they're trying to implicate some regulatory capture in addition to the multitudes that already exist. So,
which is maybe a good segue into the actual crypto crackdown that we've been facing. Is at least when you get a driver's license, you know what the speed limit is and what a stop sign means. Yeah. Whereas in crypto, we just have had no idea. So there have been wild crackdowns on things people had no predictability about. I believe that we saw 784 enforcement actions filed in 2023 by the SEC alone.
Which is up 3% from 2022.
Right.
Which I mean, isn't really surprising. Like, before we move on, that to me isn't that surprising that the amount of actions taken
that's 65 a month.
Yeah.
That is so many enforcement actions.
Yeah, well, yes and no, if you think about it. Like, the SEC oversees everybody in the US. So, like, if you think combined, because I don't think this is just for crypto. I think this is just in general. Yeah, this is for all things SEC. I mean, there is tens of thousands of regulated entities in the US. I mean, it's probably inevitable. I think, again, this is an odd time where I'm trying to play both sides here.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing here. This is the second highest number of penalties in the history of the SEC.
I don't mind it, to be honest. I don't mind the penalties if the rules were clear. I don't mind the penalties because I think you need both a carrot and a stick to keep people in line. You can't like just making rules and that's it doesn't necessarily mean anything. There has to be enforcement, and there has to be a bit of a stick that creates a little bit of fear and deterrence from doing this. So from doing that kind of stuff, I don't mind this. I just think it's right now, it's objectively hard to understand.
Okay, but you did hate that their enforcement actions net nearly $5 billion in fines and restitution, right?
I hate it, but not because it's 5 billion.
No, I know.
Because that's a leading narrative.
Agreed.
And I don't think that any regulatory agency, should have a budget for enforcement actions, because that should be driven by evidence and what's happening. And I surely don't think, even if they do have like internal budgets, hey, we got to earn this much to keep everybody employed. Even if they have that, that's surely something that you should not be, putting on a flag and waving everywhere you go. Like, to me, it just seems insane that nobody else is kicking and screaming about this. This is like complete craziness to me. This is, in my opinion, another tax. This is another way of them taxing business in extraordinary ways. You find some of the most successful or cash healthy businesses in the United States, and then you just start suing them.
Okay, maybe you can say a real FU to this next one, because
I have so many FUs to the SEC today. Holy
I don't know. So far, you're only pro SEC, as far as I can tell.
No, I was still pretty FU SEC.
Okay, so this next one is about the Bitcoin ETF decisions and what's going on with that.
Yeah.
The reason that the big FU stands here isn't that we still haven't seen movement. It isn't anything that we've already talked about. It's that the SEC had an initial deadline to respond to Hashdex and a couple other ones by today. Yeah. And they've just decided to extend the deadline. So like the SEC had a deadline and they just were like, nah, never mind. So I don't know how many times they're allowed to do that. I don't really understand the politics behind that, but 3 times?
I believe they can punt 3 times, 2 or 3 times. And so this is the first major cycle that you've paid attention, I'm sure, to ETF applications.
Correct.
This has actually been the thing forever. Like you wait, and then like the day before, the day of, they just punt down the field. And in the past, they've punted as many times as they could, and then eventually just said no.
But why? Why defer it? What's the point?
Not enough data. We're not confident enough. We're not. I don't know. We don't have enough rules to make an informed decision. Like, I don't fucking know. There's always some nonsense of why it's delayed, and the nonsense is it's hard to take anything at face value, because it's almost always smoke and mirrors and lies from both sides of the political party, from all regulators. Like,
yeah, the SEC states that they have concerns about market manipulation if they approve the ETF.
That's such an easy excuse.
Yeah, do you like that one? They also talk about surveillance sharing agreements, but the market manipulation one was my favorite.
It's going to kill me.
Yeah, the SEC is going to kill you right here on camera.
Yeah, right now, just because I said it. They're making me choke on my coffee. But joking aside, yeah, this whole thing is complete garbage. Like it's such a cop-out to say, oh, well, we're unsure because of market manipulation. Yeah. Define market manipulation. Tell us what it means so that we can fix it. And the answer is, well, we can't, because then you can argue with our point and probably prove that it's no worse than so many other regulated industries, that they're better off to just give you this kind of bullshit blanket answer and never detail.
For me, this is the big FU. It's I understand that governments delay. I understand that they defer. I get it. But yeah. I'm tired of being told no with no because. Well,
and that's the thing. It's a frequent no. And this is the problem with Coinbase and Ripple and everybody that's claiming all these issues and Grayscale suing the SEC is it's not just that you didn't get approved. It's that you just got denied with a bullshit reason and nothing actionable on the other end.
Right.
Like what like these are ongoing concerns that have raised millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like there's a lot of people involved in these businesses and entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of capital here. Just because you got declined doesn't mean that business is just going to fold and go away. They need to know what next. Like, what do I have to do to come into compliance? What do you want? Just tell me what you want. We'll figure it out, and then we'll be able to do it. That's what we've all been saying for the last, loudly we've been saying it for the last 3 to 4 years. Is like, just give us some freaking rules so we. whatever it is, I say this all the time, we're going to hate them no matter what. Any rule is more of a pain than no rules, obviously. Any compliance is more of a pain than no compliance, obviously, from a practitioner's perspective. But like let's just put the shit aside. Let's get on with it here. That's kind of where I'm at. Like I feel like we're just dancing around this thing.
So
forever.
You had said just previously when we were talking about being able to defer and change the deadlines and what have you, that typically they defer the 3 times and then they say no anyways. Mm-hmm. Well, Coinbase has come out and actually made statements saying that they predict at least one Bitcoin ETF will be approved before the end of the year.
Before the end of 23.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. They have another problem though, the SEC, and that is there's a lot of ETFs, and I think the ones that they were probably most inclined to approve are not the first ones that need to be approved. So we'll have to see. I think if I had to bet on this, I think ARK, Cathie Wood probably has a pretty good chance of getting approved this time around. I think Grayscale obviously has a pretty good chance of being approved this time. And I think the BlackRock one for sure would be, I think the BlackRock one is the one that would push it across the line in general. They've just got a pickle. Do they approve them all at once? Do they approve one and then let the market go bananas over the approvals of the other? The pending imminent approvals of the other? Like, I don't know. If they want to see market manipulation, watch that. Like, watch what happens if you don't approve them all at once.
Oh, absolutely.
Then you'll just see like the craziest speculative bubble ever. I think. So, anyways, we'll have to see.
Yeah, and then I wonder. So we've talked about this a little bit before, but we're talking about Bitcoin ETFs, how that's getting deferred. Coinbase believes that they will stop being deferred before the end of the year.
At least one of them.
So we'll see how that goes. But then we are seeing BlackRock and probably other companies go a little bit deeper and also file for ETH ETFs, via iShares and a few other ones. So do you think that we'll see other ETF filings before anything gets approved?
I mean, I would be really shocked if we saw ETFs for anything beyond Bitcoin and ETH right now until we have some clarity.
You don't want an XRP ETF?
Not that I don't want one. I just don't think we're going to see applications because the chances of them getting approved in the near future are like pretty much zero. I think strategically applying for the ETH spot ETF at the same time is actually, in my opinion, a smart move.
Oh yeah, because
it gives the SEC something to still say no to or to still like have criticisms of, and they can show some contrasts between Bitcoin and Ethereum in terms of just the technology and a few other things, market cap, volatility, whatever, holders, decentralization, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
At this point, I personally would just file for a bunch of altcoin ETFs that like shouldn't make it through.
Yeah.
Just to be like, look, we understand this isn't all going to work, but if we have the comparison, you can see how reasonable these initial requests are. It's
pretty expensive. The applications aren't cheap. There's a lot of lawyers involved.
I'm sure BlackRock can afford it, JD.
Yeah, the big companies can, absolutely. I mean, I have to laugh kind of at Coinbase here. And I don't often say F you to Coinbase because usually I'm a pretty big fan of most things Coinbase. But in this particular case, like, come on, guys. That's like me putting $1 on black at the casino and thinking I'm a big deal. Like, that's kind of a weak sauce bet. There's like 20 applications in. All evidence is suggesting that one or many are going to be approved by the end of the year. So like a little late. If you would have told me this 5 months ago, I would have been like, bold prediction. Let's see where it goes. But now I'm kind of like, come on, Coinbase. Like, no shit. There's probably going to be one by the end of the year. Like, and you got nothing to lose by saying it because it's probably going to happen. Anyways, okay. But I am a fan of the Ethereum ETF. There is one in Canada already. There has been for like 2 years, 3 years. I think there's multiple in Canada now. So it's kind of surprising that they're dragging their feet on it, but I don't think we'll see an ETF approval for ETH until next year for sure, if at all in this cycle. I think it's going to be a stretch, but we'll see. Is that me lagging or you? Uh-oh, someone's got lag. Probably you. Yeah, it must be. I've got full bars. Anyways, all right. There you are. You're back. Can you not hear me? No. Awesome. All right. Well, we are a live show. If you didn't know, you can tell now because we have technical difficulties every now and then. Ceara occasionally has some internet availability issues, and today is one of those days. So I'll just keep going. We've got a couple more items that we just wanted to talk about. Ripple. We talked a little bit about this the other day with respect to some of the legal officers' comments towards Gensler, but now this particular article is talking about how Stuart Alderati has suggested and refuted that Gensler's claim that the SEC does not prejudge is obviously incorrect. At least
so this was the quote from Gensler. I do have it. This was at an SEC hearing.
Hey.
He said, "We are not prosecutors of honest business nor defenders of crookedness. We are partners of honest business and prosecutors of dishonesty. We shall not prejudge, but we shall investigate."
So in other words, Ripple's just calling BS on that.
Yes.
And some of their arguments are kind of hilarious. The SEC never charged Ripple with dishonesty in its lawsuit, never claimed that it was being dishonest, which is kind of funny. And I mean, there's been quite if you remember, there was a victory of sorts for Ripple in the sense that XRP itself was ruled, generally speaking, to not be a security. And so now I think we're getting a little bit of gun waving or saber rattling, gun waving, whatever you want to call it, between the two parties, because the case isn't completely finalized yet, as far as I understand. So they're still kind of lawyering some stuff. To me, this just seems a little bit like lawyering for the rest of the case. But
I think absolutely, yes.
I have to say, I mean, the SEC has really managed to look pretty stupid in this one. Like they've come out and said a lot of dumb shit that Ripple has not let them get away with over the last couple of years. In particular, in the last year, once it seemed like Ripple had the momentum on their side. I mean, it really made the SEC look a little goofy this year. And so I don't mind that. I don't mind that.
That's all kind of it about Ripple. We've got a little bit about their price and how their price isn't doing so well for XRP, probably in the face of some of this PR. I also think people are just tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, and then they had that fake rally, right? So, I mean, they had a fake rally on a fake XRP ETF application. Yeah. And so then now they're just kind of recovering from that. People are selling.
But that's Friday. The SEC is deferring and charging and fining and not sure what they're going to do next. And some people think we know what they're going to do next, but the only thing we know is that they still hate crypto. They
need to just shut up, approve everything, and go on Thanksgiving vacation. That's what I think the SEC needs to do. All right. Well, that was another week of Go Find Yourself. We covered a lot of ground this week. Lots of stuff going on, of course. A little bit of excitement, some positive narrative. All in all, I feel really good after this week. Good economic news. In the US, home building starts are up, and a whole bunch of other things that people can't believe are the case seem to be the case. So it'll be interesting to see what happens macro wise, both macro crypto and macro economic in general over the next bit. But I think for the first time in many, 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 many weeks, I feel somewhat positive that we're really starting to build momentum in the right direction, as opposed to just slowing momentum from the wrong direction. So that's very good. Over the weekend, though, don't stress out. We've got you covered. We will have a full roundup on Monday of all the news that happened over the weekend. So enjoy time with your families, or go outside, or go to a concert, or I don't know. I don't even know what people do for fun. All I do is drive.
Maybe we won't. We'll be here monitoring the news.
Reporting on the news, or at least tracking the news, and that'll be interrupted occasionally by driving my kids around. That's about the extent of my weekend. So,
okay.
Anyways, live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. All the major venues, like, share, subscribe. With that,
that's it.
JD, go find yourself.
Yourself.
Bye.